The Devil Contract is split into 3 different stages, with each going deeper, stronger, and more dangerous than the last. In fact, the names of each level represents how deep a person can drown within the sea. The further down, the less light from the sun can reach you. The first stage is called Shallow Covenant, also known as a Shallow Sea Contract. It's symbolized by a simple circle with crossbones, and it's given to those referred to as devoted blades of God. Basically, people who closely serve Imu's agenda, either knowingly or unknowingly. This first stage doesn't seem to grant any special powers. Instead, its purpose is control. Anyone marked with the Shallow Covenant cannot disobey a direct order from Imu as long as they are within their vicinity. They can still think for themselves, they still have personalities, but the moment Imu gives a command, their free will stops there. And what's really unsettling is how widespread this mark might be, because we see Herald receive it without ever meeting Imu, simply by being in the presence of the 5 elders, which strongly suggests that some celestials or even family leaders could already have this mark without fully understanding what it is. The second stage is called the Depths Covenant, or also known as the Deep Sea Contract. The symbol is similar to the first, but with an added line that resembles a pair of horns. This covenant is granted directly by Imu, and only once someone has officially joined the God's Knights, and this is where the contract stops being subtle. Unlike the first stage, leaving aside the pain and smoke from the mark when initiated, the Depths Covenant does grant abilities. Those marked gains instant recovery, basically kind of an immortality, access to teleportation pentagrams, and of course, a major boost in power. Yep, it's like having constant supply of gamer subs, which you guys can enjoy with a 10% discount with the code ABD. But hey, the second stage's trade-off is absolute, as this level requires total obedience without any spatial limit. No matter where they are in the world, Imu can speak within their minds, and if they refuse to follow Imu's instructions, their mind will bend to a personality that will. Shanks alluded that the first Shallow Contract has the same effect, but only if Imu is close by. Once my guy realized the dangers of it, he ran as fast as he could, avoiding the upgrade. And then we have the final stage, the Abyssal Covenant, also called the Deep Sea Contract. This is where things gets really strange. Its symbol and full purpose are still unknown, but according to the 5 elders themselves, the last 2 stages combined are restricted to only 13 people. The final stage is likely only granted to the Gorosei and a very small number of others like Gunko, which immediately tells us this covenant is different from the rest. My assumption here is that the Abyssal Covenant is directly linked to Imu's own devil fruit power, and that it siphons Imu's essence into the host, which would explain the non-aging factor. Yep, we know for a fact that this non-aging effect is not shared with the second stage, as Garling visibly aged after the events of God Valley, and we know he did have the second stage because his body was immortal. Meanwhile, Gunko and the Goroseis did not age, and that's an important distinction to make. Immortality and eternal youth are not the same thing. The Abyssal Covenant seems to be the only stage that grants this unaging state, possibly because it tied directly to Imu himself, and potentially stacked upon the Ope Ope no Mi Eternal Youth Surgery, which could have been done to Imu 900 years ago. This final covenant could also explain the abilities we saw the Gorosei use during Egghead. Things like complete mental communication, you know, the shoddy voice of all things, also killing through sheer intent or glance, and most importantly, their devil transformation. Yep, I am suggesting that these forms aren't actually devil fruits, rather devil minions from the abyss that Imu conjured up for his devoted soldiers. However, here's the key distinction between the second second and final stage. At the abyssal level, Imu or the Devil King can enter the host directly. We have already seen this happen with Saturn at God Valley and with Gunko in Albath. At that point, the person isn't just obeying Imu, they are being used as a vessel. But what we need to focus on today is actually the control Imu has of a person when they refuse an order. And we see exactly how this works. When King Harold refused Imu's order to form an army of giants, the contract refusal clause was initiated. What followed wasn't persuasion, it wasn't fear, it was a complete override. Harold's mind didn't just surrender, it changed. His sense of self was warped into something new, a version of himself that existed only to serve. This is important because it's not the same as Imu's Domi Reversi. They do not turn into demons, rather they still speak with their own voice, but not their own hearts. Ego takes over, fueled by a shared and genuine belief that they are gods amongst men, with Imu as the supreme authority above them all. This is where things get unsettling. Harold's demeanor, his tone, even his choice of words begin to resemble the Gorosei. And that, my friends, raises a huge question. Are the Gorosei the way they are because of who they were originally, or because of what the contract turned them into? Yep, Gunko is the clearest example of this. In chapter 1149, we learn that she has suppressed memories of Brook, yet even as a god's knight, she still listened to his music. That means some part of her original self was still there. However, it wasn't until she finally saw Brook in person with the memories of father ringing in her head, those memories started to resurface. This is when her real self begins to come back. That's when, unfortunately, Imu intervenes directly, fully taking over. And which is why I believe that kind of possession is only possible with the final contract, the Abyssal Covenant, because Harold started to regain his sense of self, yet Imu didn't take over him, though that also could be due to his mark being damaged by Loki's mythical god fruit, which I believe was the reason for Harold to break free from the dark passenger in his mind in the first place. Time and time again, I've laid out the final battle where Luffy, Blackbeard, and Loki together defeat the devil in Imu. Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi is necessary to temporarily nullify the devil's power whilst touching Imu. If he can manage to hold on to Imu down for even a few seconds, technically speaking, everyone that Imu has controlled should be free. Those who unfortunately have lived lives longer than they should have would die instantly, just like we saw with Satin Garcia. However, losing all of his minions will return Imu's essence to his full power, as it would no longer be shared. This is where Luffy will have to finish the devil himself. But hey, this is just a theory. Hey, balls deep theory. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to smash the like button, and for more peak fiction, make sure to watch this next.